okay with these lights on?
Yeah, well,
I can turn them off.
actually this one directly above me might be a bit, because I'm trying to look at a TV screen here.
Let me see if I can
Isolate that one. Yeah,
That's better?
that's better. At least I can see. Ooh.
And it's pushing me up.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please be upstanding?
Down and only dear, 100 steel towns away. Oh, the rhythm of my heart is beating like a drum. With the words I love you rolling off my tongue. No, never will I roam, for I know my place is home. Where the ocean meets the sky, I'll be sailing. Photographs, kerosene, light up my darkness, light it up, light it up, light it up. I can still feel a touch of your thin blue jeans running down the alley. I got my eyes all over you, baby. Oh, baby. Oh, the rhythm of my heart is beating like a drum. With the words I love you rolling off my tongue. No, never will I roam, for I know my place is home. Where the ocean meets the sky, I'll be sailing. I'll be sailing. I've got lightning in my
You may be seated.
Shining like the halo of a slot machine. Love may still exist in another place. I'm just yanking back the handle. No expression on my face.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, family and friends. My name is Joe Ryan, and I welcome you warmly here today as we gather to celebrate the life of Geoffrey Dean Roberts, affectionately known as Jeff. Just a couple of house rules. The toilets for people that have travelled, over at that wall there, the ladies, the gents straight through the door, and around to the left you'll find a ladies' and a gents' toilet. Masks are compulsory, unfortunately, while you are sitting down. I got an exemption from Julie, so if you're going to rush up here with a fine, you see Julie first. Every life is special and every life is precious, and none more so than Jeff's. His passing has affected so many people so deeply. Today, we will remember what a special person he was, and we'll say goodbye later in a really meaningful and loving way. What is a life? Life is all that happens between the day we're born and the day we leave this earth. It's the relationships that we create, the joy our presence gives to others, the connections we make with those around us. It's the little personal accomplishments we achieve along the way. And when we look at Jeff's life, we see he has made so many connections, so many relationships with his friends, his co-workers, his mates, with his neighbours, and especially with his wife Margaret and daughters Claire and Julie. He has brought joy and love into all of your lives, and your lives are richer because of it. To start our proceedings today, Margaret is going to be first cab off the rank, and she's going to present her eulogy and her tribute to Jeff.
Geoffrey Dean Roberts. Jeff forever said, "I have no sense of humour." So I promised him I would open with, it's not very good if I'm already going to crack up before we've even started, is it? Yep, no sense of humour. So here we go. Please bear in mind, our family all have a unique sense of humour for which we do not apologise. Well, actually, Claire does apologise, as Jeff loved colour, and when shopping for something to wear today, the perfect outfit Claire found was, of course, black. Jeff's friend Mal said, he was one of the best, the nicest man you could meet, and never said a bad word about anyone. I've thought about that, and yes, it is probably true he never said a bad word about anyone, because living with 3 females, he could probably never get a word in. Geoff was born at Glenelg on the Thursday, the 7th of March, 1957, to Dean and Delma Roberts, with his twin brother Stephen. Geoff loved to tell a good story, and when asked who was the eldest twin, he would always say, "I am." Stephen came out first and thought the nurse said, "Swipe him, not wipe him," so he dove back in and pushed me out. In his early years of life, the family lived at Dunluce Avenue, Brighton, with his grandparents Bill and Ruby, while Dean was building their family home, and on completion, they moved to Addison Road, Warradale. Geoff attended Oaklands Park Primary School and then Brighton Technical High School. He loved his high school years, attending an all-boys school, the camaraderie, practical jokes, cars, and the thrill of tormenting the teachers. He would often talk of one of his teachers who didn't follow the curriculum but taught the class how to buy a car, how to manage your money, and general life skills. Geoff was involved with the Brighton Surf Lifesaving Club from 1968 to 1973 and achieved his bronze medallion. He also enjoyed swimming and surfing, spending many hot days at Goolwa in his youth with his cousin Andy. All through his life, right from those early days, he evolved into the person he was, learning and taking life lessons from the people who came into his life. He learnt the value of good neighbours, living next door to the Thompson family and being an extended family. He learnt the value of friendship with the Forster family. We as a family enjoyed the benefits of Geoff's life lessons, reflected in the beautiful friendships with our neighbours, Rick and Christine and the late Jan, and we are also an extended family. We live life as a big Goolwa family, and as Jodie said to me recently, the village raised the children, and I can see, if I dared to look, those children here today. Tom, Ellen, Laura, Julia, Andrea, and those that would like to be here but can't, Lauren, Chelsea, Jason, Sally and Daniel. Geoff was always motivated, and his parents instilled in him that if you wanted something, you worked for it, earned the money and valued your rewards. His first job after school was washing Roger Drake's car, which probably began his passion for cars. Ironically, when I first met Geoff, he had bought that very same car, a blue Holden HK Premier. Geoff went on to own, to name a few, the Toffee Apple Red Hemi Pacer Valiant, which also started his run with car breakdowns, a HR Holden Ute, a Midnight Blue MGB, a red MGA, Trevor the Triumph TR6, and of course his beautiful MGR V8, which is outside today. Geoff would have been very impressed that I have driven to the club, roof down, and a smile on my face, which is true, I'm mixed to tears. But then I wrote, and oh dear, we won't mention how many times I crunched the gears, because that was at least 5, and that would definitely have brought an eye roll from heaven. 4th to 5th is not good. Geoff loved his cars, and through this passion, we have met and made many lifelong friends, and been lovingly accepted into a lifestyle of classic cars, road trips, car runs, Phillip Island classics, and long, long lunches. Thank you, Ali and the late Noel, all those hangovers. Geoff was so lucky to have had such good friends. And even when his stamina was dropping, just 2 weeks ago, he managed a car run with his mate Gary in the red Mustang that is outside today, while Jude and I tried to follow them in the Mazda MX-5. But there was no way we could keep up with the boys fishtailing and hooning down the road. Geoff left school after year 11 in 1974 and began his butchering apprenticeship with Coles, and during which time he met lifelong friends, Mark, Debbie and Greg, with which we have had many a great time and still do. Geoff and I met in 1977 He was 20 and I was 17. In Snowtown, life was always an adventure, and this can be said from the moment we met. Mudsliding in the back blocks of Lockhill with Mark and Debbie on our first date, and the not to believe the ridiculous story that has grown momentum about the Snowtown jail. Geoff was working as a butcher for Coles and I was a clerical assistant with Telecom. We must have thought our relationship was special, as he was working in Mount Gambier and I was working in Ceduna at the time. But we made it work. Geoff would drive up to see me for weekends at Wallaroo, but always wanted to know when I would be coming to his home in Adelaide, as he was then guaranteed his mum would cook a Sunday roast lunch. As you all know, Geoff loved his food. We were engaged on the 25th of November 1978, which was the date Geoff also celebrated the completion of his butchery apprenticeship. We married on the 6th of October 1979 at St Canice's Church in Snowtown, a wild and windy day which probably epitomised the wonderful wild ride we had ahead of us. And we honeymooned in, you guessed it, Goolwa. We built our first home in Happy Valley in 1979. Our beautiful daughters, who loved and were so loved by their dad, Claire was born in 1983 and Julie in 1987. The girls didn't slow down Geoff's zest for life. It was, of course, "Oh, shall we have a Sunday drive?" when the girls would have been about 5 and 2 years old. "We'll take the MGB. The kids will be all right sitting on the back ledge with no seatbelts. You worry too much." I cannot begin to explain my stress. We spent many weekends travelling to Snowtown to catch up with family, and always my father would have killed 2 sheep ready for Geoff to cut up. Being a farmer, my dad, he was very excited to welcome a butcher into the family. During Geoff's time as a butcher with Coles, he trained an Apprentice of the Year, of which he was immensely proud. After 12 years, Geoff left Coles in 1987 to pursue a role as the meat manager at Half Case Warehouse, Marion Road, where he enjoyed the challenges of making profit, stock control and attaining or exceeding budgets. And then in 1991, he craved the challenge of his own business and the family moved to Goolwa, where we purchased the Goolwa meat store. And of course, the delivery vehicle for the butcher shop was a Holden FB panel van, bought as a rolling wreck and restored for the job. He loved it. 3 on the tree and fat wheels. While at the Goolwa meat store, Geoff employed James Ducker Williams in his first job as an apprentice butcher. As was often the case, we were busy water skiing on the day James came for his interview. Time had gotten away and Geoff had to send the girls, dripping wet, to advise poor James, nervously waiting for his interview, that Geoff was going to be late. James has gone on to own the highly successful Goolwa Central Meats. Geoff developed and built up the Goolwa meat store, and the business was runner-up in the Telstra Small Business Awards of South Australia. Such is the wonderful community in Goolwa then and still now. Geoff was soon involved with the Apex Club, helping the community and having the time of his life. He was general committee member, catering manager for the successful jet sprints, Apex family camps at the Coorong, and unending social events, including mock weddings, dress-ups and farewells, where the goal was to see how many empty beer cans could be put by the tallest person, Max Fry, in Peter Barton's gutters. Being business owners in the main street of Goolwa, we were soon very good friends with the newsagents Lloyd and Di, and, as Geoff affectionately called him, the drug dealer, our dear friends the pharmacists Paul and Anne, who have flown back for the day from Alice Springs, for which I'm very grateful. In 1998, Geoff politely decided he had had enough of being nice to people and sold the business, and said he went to the other side of the cow and purchased a National Foods wholesale milk delivery round in Noarlunga, and so started the daily commutes to Adelaide. Geoff was a member of the National Foods Vendor Committee for many years, and as a value distributor he enjoyed many corporate events and functions, including his wonderful go-kart racing in 2003 at the Adelaide Clipsal event. 1998 was also the year we moved to the Renovators' Delight on Batson Parade, where he enjoyed many a party. The Mardi Gras, country dances in the studio, swimming in the river, water skiing, and of course sailing, and in later years, cruising on Zorro. In 2006, after moving on from National Foods and after much conferring with our newsagent buddies Di and Lloyd, we blame them, we took the plunge and took on the Happy Valley News Agency. It was like a life circle, going back into a community where he reconnected with previous neighbours and friends from the early days in the 80s. And it suited Geoff perfectly, as his golf cart number plate states, Mr. G, which is a play on words, as he was affectionately known, most of the time, as Mr. Grumpy from the Happy Valley News Agency. Sometimes he was just grumpy. So for another 13 years, Geoff commuted to Adelaide, but enjoyed driving the roads and taking every opportunity to take his sports car on a Sunday workday. He loved being back face to face with customers, and he loved his staff. Friday was his favourite day, having fatty Friday lunches with Cass, and so excited that there was a butcher shop across the mall and was often seen eating Fritz like it was an apple. We are sure he thought Fritz was a fruit. In 2019, the business was sold and Geoff retired to enjoy quality of life, as he knew time was limited and there was still so much he wanted to do. Geoff was so very proud of his son-in-laws, Jonathan and Luke, as he loved to say, "Yes, I have two son-in-laws, one married by minister and one by mortgage." He was so glad to even up the numbers and have sons who he loved as if his own. He also had his boy, Rusty, a very, very well-behaved dog. Rusty didn't bark, he didn't dig holes, he didn't take himself off for a walk. Well, not much anyway. Just after Geoff's other brother, our dear friend Alan, often ringing to report to Geoff the escapes of the dog when Alan was looking after the dog, which was often. Sailing was another early connection for the family and Goolwa. Geoff bought an Adventure 7 yacht in the 80s from Port Augusta, which then, of course, was moored at Goolwa. Weekends were then spent sleeping over at the yacht club or out and about on the river or down the Coorong. Geoff's love of sailing was the start of a wonderful lifelong friendship with Alan, who today with Liz have gone above and beyond to honour Geoff's wish to have Edith as part of his farewell. Thank you. Earlier today, Geoff sailed away, when he actually cruised, to Rod Stewart's sailing on the river at Goolwa to our home on Hindmarsh Island and back to the Goolwa Wharf on Edith to commence his goodbye. And I've missed out about Beth. In later years, his great mate Paul Simo bought his wooden boat Beth, and Geoff jumped ship from Edith and sailed on Beth. Thank you to the Goolwa mob who accompanied Geoff today on Beth. The Goolwa mob have shared many an adventure with Geoff: houseboat trips, spa parties, burning up barbecues, or perhaps that was just the late Rob Anderson's eyebrows, Adelaide Crows footy games with the Jonos, or just Geoff giving good old advice on cars to Karen. Geoff played football for a number of years at Brighton, senior football in the Adelaide Parklands and masters football on the Fleurieu, where he was known as the Meat Man. He joined the South Lakes Golf Club in 1999, having served on the committee, played in championship rounds, and enjoyed the competitive humour amongst the playing groups. Golf was a major part of Geoff's life, particularly in retirement. He was extremely competitive in both the golf and the ribbing and the winning of the all-important dollar every game. Wednesday comps were the favourite, definitely the attraction of the 19th hole, where many hours were spent with his mates. He looked forward every year to the Murray Downs tour. His humour saw the Roadrunner and the Coyote on opposite sides of his golf cart. Geoff loved to catch up with his mates in retirement, Mal and Jono, whether it be golf, fishing or drinks at the club, or just dropping by for coffee in the last few months. Geoff and Jono were so funny, or they thought they were hilarious, always texting each other, "Good day for fishing," on the wildest days. Geoff was also fortunate to have travelled to America with his mate Rick, France with friends the Forestals, and of course the Italian job with part of the mob, the Simmons and the Bilneys. Bali holidays, cruising the Whitsundays, many trips to Darwin, and in retirement we also managed many local short holidays, usually including golf. Some great times. Geoff loved music and selected the songs for his service today. And I also have to thank Cruise 1323, which he has listened to every day in his last 32 days. The boom speaker working overtime every day. There were too many people in Geoff's life to mention you all. Otherwise, Rick, I would still be here till dark and beyond. But thank you for sharing in his fun. Geoff was determined and strong. He always had the can-do attitude. Life started from the moment he was awake till the moment he was asleep every day. The day would be action-packed, whether it was 1:30am alarms in the milk days, after a midweek night of entertaining, or taking the MGA for a quick run. Not a problem that it's raining. If we drive super fast, the rain will go over us. Yes, works well, unless you have to stop for lights or traffic. But there he would be with the biggest grin on his face and, of course, his old man hat. I sometimes thought Geoff never let the truth get in the way of a good story. But when reminiscing with our friends in the last few days, it was so funny to hear his exact words repeated by his friend, so I could be left in no doubt the stories, as hilarious and ridiculous as they sounded, were in fact the truth. Except, of course, the one about the Snowtown jail. We were yin and yang, as Dr. Davidson ever so politely said one day when he realised, after we'd been going there for years, that we were a couple. Margaret, you are so intense. And Geoff is so Geoff. I guess you could call us a love story. While at the Melbourne airport waiting in 2014, Geoff received a call with a diagnosis of multiple myeloma, and so began the 7-year journey of which he had amazing strength, tenacity and more courage than anyone I know. He continued to work for 5 years, in which he endured stem cell harvesting in 2014, chemotherapy and a stem cell transplant in 2015. A trial regime in 2016 at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, further chemotherapy treatment at Flinders to prepare for another stem cell transplant in 2019. The aggressiveness of the myeloma was such that by October 2020, I was advised to have our affairs in order. But Geoff, being Geoff, always an overachiever, was having none of that, and survived bilateral stent surgery twice, and then was offered the chance to apply on compassionate grounds for a non-PBS trial drug, and thanks to our wonderful Dr. Wallington, approval was granted. Geoff reacted amazingly well to the drug, with his massive tumour resolved, allowing him to have the bilateral stents removed. His doctors were calling him the miracle man. Unfortunately, 8 months later, near the end of June this year, only 3 weeks after a good blood test, his body was again ravaged with the myeloma and tumour. But, again, Geoff never let his illness dictate his life. It was an inconvenience to his lifestyle. He never did things by half. His 60th birthday was a gala event. We had to bring in the pizza oven, the live music, the rock and roll dancing on the front lawn. He joined in the live music, loved to sing, badly out of tune, and had a ball. He loved a good party. We had such a great relationship with Dr. Wallington, who's actually rang me this morning, that on one appointment the doctor said, "I'm really concerned with your liver readings. Is there any reason they would be so high?" To which Geoff excitedly told him about his wonderful golf trip with the boys. Dr. Wallington was not impressed. His response, "I am trying to save you and you are trying to kill yourself. So which way do you want to proceed?" Geoff, suitably chastised, giggled all the way home. He loved to giggle, crying at the same time when he thought he was so funny. In March this year at the Adelaide Cup function, held on the lawns at 95 Batson, it was full dress up, with a boys' fashion parade completed with such style, as you may see in the additional photos to be played, while we do what Geoff loved most. Have some party pies and a beer, of course. Geoff had a wonderful 32 days at home, and a decision to have no medication on his arrival home saw him become vibrant and alert, with a sharp wit and lots of moments with his great sense of humour. Geoff believed life was for living. He always looked at the positive. If Geoff was your friend, he valued and treasured your friendship. He made time for people, he listened. He laughed, he loved a good time, a beer, a drop or two of red. Geoff packed an amazing life into 64 years. Thank you so much for all the wonderful calls, messages, flowers, tributes. However, I am concerned that with all the beers and glasses of red waiting for him from his friends who have gone before him, that he could start life in heaven with a dreadful hangover. Thank you for caring and sharing the celebration of Geoff's wonderful life.
Thank you very much. Geoff had two princesses, and he did separate them, but I'm not going to. They can do that themselves. Oh, okay, one was perfect, and we won't say what the other one was. So Claire and Julie, please come and explain.
Well, I'm Princess Perfect. I'm Princess Not So Perfect. Okay, Dad always said, be happy, be positive. No one likes being around unhappy people. People don't want to hear about your sore foot. They want to hear how much fun you were having when you hurt your foot. There are so many memories I could share today, but here are a select few. Dad was so passionate about family, and no matter what, his family always came first. My very first childhood memory was Dad lying on the couch in Happy Valley, my bedtime routine. Every night I'd sit behind his knees and watch Fat Cat. When Fat Cat was finished, I would climb over Dad's legs, kiss the TV goodnight. Mum would tuck me into bed and Dad would clean the TV screen. My favourite breakfast at Happy Valley, for as long as I remember, was jam and cream on toast. Every morning except Sunday. On Sundays we had Vegemite. I remember sitting on the kitchen bench with Dad, eating jam and cream on toast, and when we finished the cream, he put the container in the bin. And Dad said, "Well, Claire, that was the last time you're having jam and cream on toast. We're saving that for a special occasion." He promptly left for work and called out for Mum to come and deal with my meltdown. When I was 6, we moved to Goolwa, and I'll always remember walking to the butcher shop after school, having a slice of Fritz and climbing the tree out the back, waiting for Mum and Dad to finish work. Thanks, Dad, for giving me the scar on my left thumb, the day you nearly cut it off. All because I wanted 6 slices of Fritz, not one piece cut into 6. And hence, trying to race you to the Fritz, you managed to cut my thumb instead of the Fritz. And off to the doctor he walked me to get 6 stitches instead. Dad was always so frustrated with Julie and I for not riding our bikes to school. Every Sunday night he would bring it up again. So girls, are you going to ride your bikes to school this week? No, we would reply. Our helmets will mess our hair up. He asked us would we catch the bus instead, but no, we refused that too. The only way we were going to school was in his FB panel van, the meat van, sitting in the back in our beanbags. In my teenage years, Dad was the milky. In the school holidays, I would go to work with him every day. We'd be up at 2 a.m, loading the truck, and we'd set off from the depot at 5 a.m. to start the deliveries to the supermarkets, the service stations, and the cafes. Dad let me drink as much flavoured milk as I wanted. That was my pay. And let me tell you, after the first week, I never drank another drop of flavoured milk, and I still can't. It was my pleasure going to work with Dad, just being with Dad, singing along to Meatloaf, all the way from Highmarsh Island to Noarlunga. As soon as we got back to Highmarsh Island, we'd have a quick sleep and then off water skiing for the rest of the afternoon. We had many weekends camping at the Coorong with family friends, and on one occasion the boat was packed so full there was no room for Julia or I. So we had to kneeboard the entire way from home to the lock, sit on the back of the boat dripping wet to get through the lock, and then we had to kneeboard all the way to the mouth, sit on the back of the boat dripping wet to go past the mouth, and then we had to kneeboard all the way to where we camped. Dad said, "Have fun, girls, but don't stuff around. If you fall off, I'm not coming back to get you." Every night, and I mean every night, we ate dinner at the table as a family. The TV was off and we talked. Everyone got a turn. We had to say how our day was, but you couldn't complain because no one likes complaining people. If something bad had happened in our day, we had to find the positive. Growing up, we never had a curfew. If we were going out, Dad always said, "Have fun, stay safe, call me if you need anything, I'll send your mother. And be home at a reasonable hour." I always asked, "What time is that?" He always replied, "Whatever time you think's reasonable." "Well, yes, Dad, but what time is that?" 10 p.m, 1 a.m, 3 a.m. He said, "You tell me what you think's reasonable." It was not until my 30th birthday that he finally explained what he meant by a reasonable hour. Dad had the best sense of humour and was always playing practical jokes on us. He was precious about his bathroom time, and with 3 girls I now understand that was probably because he never got much time in the bathroom. But one day we were going out. Dad was just out of the shower and I wanted to clean my teeth. Well, he told me to get out. But then he called me back to the bathroom, passed my toothbrush through the door with toothpaste on it ready to go. And he told me to clean my teeth in the laundry. So I did. But it wasn't toothpaste he put. It was shaving cream. And I couldn't get the taste out of my mouth for days. And the practical jokes just escalated from there. What I'll always cherish is that not only were you my dad, but in the last 20 years you've been my friend. We've partied together, been hungover together. We've sailed together. We have raced against each other, and how we laughed when we lapped you on the chop sausage chop races. We've been on car runs together. We've travelled together, many times to Phillip Island, many adventures in the Northern Territory, swimming in the waterholes at Litchfield, checking for snakes in the motel at Kakadu, and the adrenaline-filled bareboat sailing in the Whitsundays. A dear friend of mine this week told me you would be the proudest father in heaven, but let me tell you, I'm the proudest daughter on earth. Your passion for living life to the fullest was infectious, and I'm going to be as passionate about living my life as amazingly as you lived yours.
As we go on, I will always remember the good times we had together. Most of you will know we have a beautiful home on High Island. In the early years, it was a renovator's delight. Mum made the comment, "Shall we sell up and move to Adelaide?" I remember Dad looking at Claire, then looking at myself. Collectively, we went, "See you, Mum." Every visit to Dear Ali's, Late Noel's, or Rick's house, Claire and I would get the talk. Now, girls, remember, speak when you're spoken to, and most importantly, look with your eyes, not your hands. I confirm both Claire and I were very good at following Dad's instructions. As Mum and Dad worked long hours in the butcher shop, sometimes we'd be instructed to catch the bus home from school. Do not answer the phone. Keep all doors locked at all times, even if Uncle Greg visits. So we did just that. We followed our routine, and one day there was a knock at the door. We both went and looked, staring at our neighbour, knocking frantically, asking to come inside and use our phone. Following Dad's instructions, we shook our head and the man ran off. We noticed a fire. Unfortunately, our neighbour's house burnt down that day. Got you there, Dad. You were speechless. You couldn't tell us off. And I can confirm I enjoyed my ice cream award for listening to his instructions. Dad, you had many false starts to the pearly gates. Through this, we saw your determination, your courage, and your strength. I recall one occasion where the family were working in the garden and Dad managed to fall off the retaining wall. Fell flat on his back, rolling side to side, crying in pain. Naturally, we all ran to his aid, thinking he was having a heart attack. Then we realised he'd just rolled his ankle. That then began the family saying, "Toughen up, princess." I remember the days playing with the pig's eyes in the butcher shop. Dad thought he was hilarious. So he sent me to school with the pig's eyes for show and tell, including a note for my teacher to pin them above the blackboard so she could keep an eye on the class. Loved his sense of humour. Dad had our dog Rusty trained really well, as you'd all know. Mum shout, "Dinner ready!" So we'd all rush to the table. Mum would turn around to find Rusty sitting in her seat. No matter how far, Rusty would hear Dad at the freezer door. Next minute, Dad and Rusty would be sitting up, sharing a tub of ice cream. 1 spoon for Dad, 1 spoon for Rusty. Repeat. Mum and Dad had a wonderful relationship, always saying good morning every day. Recently, I heard Mum say, "Morning." There was a long, horrible pause. My heart sunk. Suddenly, Dad said, "Surprise!" Giggling to himself naturally. Unfortunately, it's inappropriate I continue that story, but I can share with you, I think it's hilarious Dad had to get his own breakfast that morning. Thank you, Dad, for your guidance and advice. Keep your best foot forward. Be nice to everyone, as you never know who you are talking to. Life's about who you know, not what you know. My favourite. Chin up, tits out, bum in. Thank you for being my father, my best friend, my support network, and most importantly, my personal navigation support system when I was lost on a regular basis. Dad, I'm lost. There's a brick building, a tree, and I don't know what that sign says. You were one of a kind. Sadly missed along life's way, quietly remembered every day. No longer in our life to share, but in our hearts you're always there. Gone, but never forgotten. I have an angel watching over me. I call him Dad. No matter where I am, your spirit will be beside me. For I know that no matter what, you'll always be with me. 3 lines. It's been a long week without you, Dad. I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. I love you to the moon and back.
Well done. One of the jobs I got today was I'm supposed to wipe the mic after everybody has spoken. And it's not because of COVID. Julie said you'd all end up with an Irish accent. Now we're going to sit back and watch the family album and the first of 2 beautiful PowerPoints. You can sit back and see some of the highlights from Geoffrey's life, the early days.
Heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. You don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the 4th, the 5th, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on her beauty and the moonlight overthrew ya. Well, she tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throne and cut your hair, and from your lips she drew hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Baby, I've been here before. I've seen this room and I've walked the floor. Used to live alone before I knew ya. But I've seen your flag on the marble arch. Our love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. cry that you hear at night. It's not someone who's seen the light. It's a cold and broken hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Beautiful. I love the shirt. A good man is hard to find. Now we've got some more speakers, and Mal Watts and Greg Johnson.
Me? Oh, mine? Okay. That's the 10th water. The one over there is the 13th. The 11th tee off is over there. Now, not many people have eagles. I've had one in about 40 years. Jeff had one. He teed off on the 11th tee over there. The wind was about probably 20, 25, 30 knots. He hooked it from the 11th tee and it landed on the other side of that water. Would have been in the water if the wind wasn't blowing. So that's about 200 metres from the 11th green, which is the hole we were playing, way down there. So he found his ball. The wind's blowing a gale. And he cracked a 3-wood right on this ball. Sailed over the 12th fairway, bounced once before the 11th green, bounced once again, and rolled 20 feet into the hole. An eagle 2 on the 4th on a par 4. And that was we have lots of fun out there, Mal, Jeff, and I, and it's been a great journey. Jeff had a few sayings on the course. Memorable ones to me are, it must have been a good shot. It's down near my ball. And if we did have a good shot, Mal or I, and we spent a few seconds just watching it, yeah, he'd say, hurry up, get off the tee, Cullibond. Over the years, we went on a few golf trips away with the vets, Murray Downs trip, and our own down the Murray tour this year to Berry in February. Of course, Jeff knew every bakery between Goolwa and wherever we were going. He could review them all and we knew which ones to either avoid or go back to. When Jeff owned the news agency in the early years, he sometimes didn't play golf on Saturday mornings, but when he did, he often received phone calls from his staff at the shop. Sometimes there was a security problem or a cash problem or a password didn't work. He often joked that Mark changed it and forgot to tell anyone. But the golf club has a rule about turning phones off during play. But he used to say, and he used the excuse, he needed to have it on for work. You know, it's only recently come to light in the last few weeks. I mean, they were days gone by. And recently, it's just come to light that thanks to a close friend, we found out he didn't know how to turn the phone off. A close friend, Diane Lloyd, said, there's a little button here, and he learned how to press it and just put it on silent. So that was Geoff. As Margaret said, he cared for the staff at the news agency. The staff called him Mr G. That could either stand for Mr Geoff or Mr Grumpy, but that's on his golf cart out there. My mate Geoff, or Geoffrey to close family and friends. He was one all-round good guy to everyone who knew him. Always eager to put his hand up if he felt he could make a difference. After a long battle, he's one of the good ones taken away too early. Geoff, from all your mates on the Down the Murray tour and all your golfing mates here, rest easy, my friend.
I first met Geoff and Greg about 7 years ago when I started playing Saturday comp golf down here at South Lakes. I don't know what, I didn't know if at the time if Geoff was a glutton for punishment or he just felt sorry for me because he kept putting his name down every Saturday with me. We had a great golf friendship. We entered quite a few of the 4-ball or better ball championships and won both net and gross in our grade over the years, which was a highlight for me, playing a lot of golf with Geoff. As most of you know, Geoff had his myeloma for quite a while. This did not stop him from his Saturday golf, even when he was having treatment. He was conscious of the effects the chemo would take and often asked me to help him with his counts when he had chemo brain, as he called it. Nothing was going to interfere with Geoff's honesty or ability when it came to his golf. Geoff was my roommate on our trips to Murray Downs, and what a roommate. No toss of the coin to see who got the double bed or the spare room. Geoff automatically took the sofa or the little bed and I got the big bed, which was fantastic. And I asked, why? Why don't you want to toss a coin? You can have the big room. He said, no, he said, I like to wander around at night. So I don't know what he did at night, Mark, but he liked to wander around.
The fridge.
The fridge was out there. And we had our last trip, as was alluded to, in February this year, with 9 of us went up to Berry and had a great time. It was fantastic. When he retired about 2 years ago, Wednesday golf with the boys became a priority. He, like all of us, enjoyed company and the continuous payouts we would give each other. One of the group, Nick Berenico, or the Russian, or Faldo, that was his nickname, always liked giving everyone nicknames. Magic for Greg Johnston, Megawatts for myself. Chris Hayward was Thesaurus. The people that know Chris will know why, etc., etc. I asked Faldo the other day, what was the nickname you gave Geoff? And he didn't have to. He said we all called him Robbo. And that's what we affectionately did call him, was a Robbo. Geoff was a lot of fun to partner at golf. He had a lot of idiosyncrasies, as we all do. He had a trusty 4-iron, but he never used it as a long iron. It was anything from 50 metres out. That was his chipper. And it worked pretty well too. He also had what we called a duck waddle. He'd putt very close to the hole and he'd go like that, hoping the ball would miraculously be moved by his body going in. He also had the best swagger or strut in the business. He'd chip from 25 metres off into the hole and off he'd go. It was like, didn't you expect me to do that? I knew you was going to. And believe me, once or twice every round, Geoff did do it. People that play with him can attest to that. And then his famous, oh man. If you ever heard Geoff yell out, oh man, you knew he just duffed the shot. Didn't swear, just, oh man. Quite often happened on the 17th. Great drive down the middle of the 17th. Next shot, into the bunker. Lousy drive down the 17th. Next shot, oh man, in the bunker. Throughout Jeff's illness, we never heard him use his illness as a reason for a bad shot or a bad day, and he never complained of pain. While the lengths of his drives and second shots were weakening, he never gave up. He won his last club competition on Wednesday the 14th of April with 38 points. He played his last game of golf on a Monday late in June. At the time, the three of us that were there that day did not realise it was his final round. In closing, Geoff was one of the nicest, sincerest friends I've ever had. He didn't swear very much, and when he did, it was quietly spoken, excuse me, fuck off. Rest in peace, mate.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Mal. And now Rick Medlin, who is going to say a few words.
How good to get that off. Now, in here somewhere. Oh, I've left them behind. How bad is that? But I've got a little cheat sheet up here in my pocket. So, Geoffrey, Dean, Margaret, Claire, Julie, Stephen. I feel very honoured to be up here. I had a wonderful thing happen to me once, and that was that I met Geoffrey Roberts. He was Geoffrey, and then he became Geoff, and then he became Jiffy. So that happened to me. I met him and immediately took a liking to Geoff. He was one of those guys that could become your lifelong friend just as quickly as that. So I thought, the house next door for me is for sale. I think the Roberts, didn't know Margaret at that stage, I thought the Roberts would make wonderful neighbours. So I said to Geoff, why don't you have a look at the place next door to me? To which he said, we've already had a look and don't like it. I think Margaret didn't like it. Anyway, so I thought about that for a couple of days, and I wandered around the butcher shop and generally made a nuisance of myself. And finally he said, what's going on? And I said, look, Geoff, what I want you to do is to come down and just have a look around the property with me. And he said, why? And I said, I just come down and have a beer. I said, and we'll do it late in the afternoon when it's getting a bit darker and you can sort of close your eyes a bit. So we walked around and we looked at it, and I said, bear in mind, every property that you're going to buy, any property you're going to buy, you're going to change. So don't mind the mess, don't mind all the bits and pieces, because it'll come up good. He said, you're right, I think it will. And that was one of my luckiest days, because I scored the Roberts as neighbours. There was a couple of downsides, which we'll go into. But of course, the big upside was that Geoff was reliable, and at night time he was generally home. Quite often in those days, at night time, I was trying to negotiate my way in my boat back from somewhere. And not it being a fair bit later than what I thought I should have left, I couldn't find home. Driving along that, coming down that river, it's not easy when you've had a couple of glasses, not too many, but trying to find home's difficult. So I'd ring Geoff. Geoffrey, I'd say, can you just turn on all your lights and pop down to my wharf? So sure enough, Geoffrey would turn on all his lights, he'd pop down to my wharf, and he'd be there ready to tie me up when I came in. What a wonderful neighbour. What a wonderful neighbour. Now, while he was there and we were enjoying our relationship, and Geoffrey was a great sort of fella. Bear in mind I've got to cut this a bit short because Margaret's taken most of what I was going to say. Geoffrey decided that he'd like to have a dog. So, after a little bit of selection, Rusty appeared on the scene. Hello, Rusty. Great boy. Good boy, Rusty. And Geoffrey was in love with Rusty. Geoffrey at this stage had moved into the milk ground. So instead of going to work at a normal, responsible hour, he used to leave about 1:30 in the morning. Responsible because he would get out and get in his truck, van, ute, whatever he happened to be driving, start it very quietly and just sneak away. Having snuck away, he'd then start to accelerate and we wouldn't even know that he'd gone, except Rusty arrived on the scene. Geoffrey would go through all this rigmarole and just as he was about to move off, down would go the glass in the window. See you, Rusty? And Rusty would go woof, 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 until he woken up the entire neighbourhood, and that was our friendship with Rusty. Now, Geoffrey had a real liking for cars. Sports cars, historic cars, speed cars. He really loved them, and he had several, as we've heard, and had a lot of fun with them. And with us, Jan and I, Christine and I, we used to go to Phillip Island every year, and Geoff would come along. He'd be a wonderful helper. If you needed stuff taken from there instead of over there, Geoffrey was there to do it. He was really wonderful, and we had a great time. We knew that Friday night was pizza night, Saturday night, and on it went. After we'd been doing this for a while, and of course at this stage there was a fence between the Roberts house and ours. It wasn't much of a fence. If you needed to talk to somebody over there, there was a bell hanging on one of the fence posts, so you'd go and jangle that for a while, and Margaret had come out eventually. And so it was just like one big happy family. As I said, Geoff really liked going to Phillip Island and seeing the cars over there. Now, one day, over quite a few beers, our good friends, Noel and Ali Roscoe, just happened to mention that they were thinking of going to California to the Pebble Beach Classic Auction and Car Runs. And I could see that Geoffrey was pretty interested in what they had to say about it. And I thought, I wonder if he'd really like to go. So I said, Geoffrey, why don't we go? And he said, oh, we can't go because milk and all the stuff that got in the way. Well, he went off to work. Margaret and Jan and I had a conversation at some length and finally resolved the milk round. We resolved the financial problems. We resolved all the bits and pieces that were in it. And by the time he got home that night, the bookings had been made, the flights had been organised, the accommodation was ready, and everything was set to go to California. And I think he was really, really excited about going to California. And I know that for 5 days we had an absolutely wonderful time. We did all sorts of things that two boys together do, and no laughing. It wasn't funny. And because you've got to be aware, there's an old saying that probably most of you remember, and that's what goes on the bus stays on the bus. So when we got back, Margaret said, "Did you have a good time?" "Yes." "What did you do?" "Yes." "Did you go there?" "Yes." "Did you see this?" "Yes." So she realised that she wasn't really going to get very much out of us. But the one thing that Geoffrey showed to me was that one night in Pebble Beach they have an auction where expensive cars are sold to people with too much money, and it's interesting to go along and have a look and see the byplays that go on at these auctions. So Geoffrey said, "We're going to the auction." I said, "Right, let's go." So we went to the auction. We got as far as the door, and the doorman said, "Where's your programs?" And Geoffrey said, "We haven't got any." And the man said, "Well, you have to go and get them over there. Go over there and buy them." I thought, this is where the crunch happens, because I know the price of the programs. Now, when Geoffrey was told that they were $300 per program, he wasn't quite as enthusiastic. We got a bit round-shouldered and left. And this is where Geoffrey's imagination really came to the fore. He looked over there somewhere, and there was a fellow with a Ferrari having real trouble trying to start it because the battery was flat. Geoffrey said, "Come with me." So over we went, having trouble, mate. Yes. Can't get the car to start. Yes. Could we give you a push? Well, that'd be handy, would you mind? No, we're more than happy to. I didn't know that I was part of the we. But we're more than happy to give you a push. So we did. We pushed the man down the street, it wouldn't start. We pushed him back up the street, it wouldn't start. We pushed him on this road that took us around, and suddenly there we were, in the hall, on the stage, with a Ferrari. Wacko. Elbow from Geoff, come on, down to the seats. I told you I could do it. So, so there we were. So that's just a little highlight of the things that endeared Geoffrey to me. He also, he's a very busy man. He was always with the milk, with the butcher shop, and then latterly with the newsagent. Geoffrey was always busy. He was always at work. He was always very conscientious. But in the middle of all this, he found time as a member of Apex to do the work that he did. And we might all remember, some of us anyway who are old enough, remember the jet sprints. And Geoff was always over there, and he was a great help there. He helped tremendously, helped raise money for the community, and that's another thing that endeared Geoffrey to the community. Now, I don't propose to say much more. I think you all know what I thought of Geoffrey. He was a wonderful man and a wonderful neighbour. And Geoffrey, it's really a pleasure to be here, old friend, to wish you bon voyage, and to wish the girls, Dean, all the best, and enjoy your life as Geoffrey would want you to. Thank you.
And now Simo, or Paul Simmons, is going to say a few words.
Geoff's laugh was so big it needed two of us to talk about it.
But most of it's been covered, so this is just for the people who've gone to sleep in the middle. Here it all is again.
Yep. Today we're representing the many friends of Geoff Roberts, and in particular the Goor mob, a group of us. We've come together as a family consisting of the Andos, Bilneys, Johnos, Roberts and Simos, using some of the words and thoughts to remember him.
Geoff Roberts was our friend and we loved him. We first met Margaret and Geoff at the Goor Slipway and slid into a friendship with the Roberts family through our children, Apex owning a Cadell Street business and having common friends, or rather friends in common. Or maybe I was right. Common friends. In the early days, many happy times were spent at the Edwards with the Bilneys, Forestals, Firedocs, Brocky and others dropping in. And a particular highlight, including the Fries, were the 2004 Olympics held on the Roberts front lawn. The last photo in the last set was Geoff, I think, in an equestrian event at that afternoon.
Yep. With various combinations of friends and families, Geoff travelled to Darwin, France, Italy, Sydney, Melbourne and numerous holiday destinations in South Australia. The most recent being in April to Point Turton with the Johnsons and Bilneys. Many of our memories of Mr G, Meat Man, or Man with Baby, all affectionate terms, over the years revolve around water. Particularly how he became Man with Baby. There's a skip of a small boat taking us around the coast and trying to allocate seats. And he said, "A man with a baby, will you move at the front of me?"
and it stuck. I'm sure you've all had water adventures with Geoff. Ours include uncontrollable catamarans skimming across with the Apex group, competitive and cruising sailing in vintage boats, Coorong camps, Coorong trips for the day, cruising in Zorro, Pop and I, the Christmas light tours with Pam and Greg, swimming in the sea, body surfing, and he had the body, swimming in the rock pools and waterways of Northern Territory on a trip we went to Darwin, bombing in our pool, seeing how big he could get the splash, and yes, there was water left. And scarily in Bali, he got to the top of this rock climb and decided that he would bomb into the rushing water, whitewater river below. I thought we were going to lose him that day, but he survived, and we've got a story to tell and a memory of that day. Numerous houseboat trips with friends and family, stories of parking the boat with the fries and sitting in the spa on the roof with Jono drinking a bottle of scotch, all related around water. I think he must have been a water baby.
Geoff was a keen sailor with his Adventure 7, but he really hit his straps when he started sailing with the Vintage Boat Club. He was part of a crack team on Edith with Alan Edwards, and the first time the team got together, we won the Gurwa race in vintage boats. Later, Geoff became the main sheet hand on the Cooter boat, which we owned, and later on Beth. He was one of the lucky people to be on board when we sank the Cooter boat.
He survived.
We all survived, yeah. But both in the Cooter boat and in Beth, we have won with Geoff in the crew the Armfield race to Malang. This year, Geoff hasn't been quite able to handle the main sheet, but came as an observer and gave his opinion of how we sailed, providing commentary with great hilarity to the working crew, whilst enjoying one of Pam's obligatory muffins. On many occasions, Geoff volunteered to check the boat when it was not so good, taking it over to Malang with us so we could sail the race. I'm all very grateful for that help over those years. He was also kind and generous with the community, and particularly the Apex and golf clubs.
In fact, the community service extended to help populate High Marsh Island. When on holiday once with the Bilnies, we received an urgent message. Come home immediately. What is it? Oh, we found the perfect house for you. We didn't come home because we thought they were joking, but guess what? They did find the perfect house on High Marsh Island, thanks Mark and Geoff. But not only that, the Fries were returning to South Australia, and they asked Geoff to eyeball their proposed new home on the island, purchased sight unseen during last year's lockdown, based on Geoff's discerning eye. He said it was okay, they bought it, and they're living here now. Fun, food and friends all played a big part in Geoff's life, and in fact you couldn't have one without the others. We all have wonderful memories of Margaret and Geoff's hospitality, sharing meals and card games at Bats and Parade, dance parties in the studio, Sunday afternoon drinks, our Christmas outings, watching footy together, and holidays. These days and nights were always punctuated with banter and laughter, and at some point Geoff proclaiming loudly,
I have feelings too, you know. Being an ideas man, whether in business or in life, Geoff made things happen. When he was the catering officer for the Gurwa Apex Club and running the Jet Sprint catering, he turned leftovers into successful fun functions for the club. Another example of his catering was some years ago, Geoff, Lloyd Bilney and myself went to Black Point, and Geoff said, I'll do breakfast. We said, that's great, Geoff, because I knew he was a great caterer. Menu for breakfast being 1 large roll, 1 sausage, 1 steak, 2 eggs, bacon, baked beans, plus coffee. 3 hours later, he said, when's lunch? Lloyd and I weren't up to it. Since his retirement, I believe he's shared some great barbecue lunches with Greg, particularly after fishing, possibly a bit more moderate than the breakfast.
Jeff was quick to share a joke. Emails also, not always appropriate. And we've heard that he was a practical joker. And he found it particularly amusing if he managed to get you. If you've never had empty beer bottles hidden around your house or your decorative pieces rearranged, did you really know Geoff Roberts? When he was happy or excited, we all knew. His face would light up with a huge smile. His enthusiasm and childish delight was infectious. One of the happiest we have seen him was in Sydney in the ice bar. While everyone else had frozen faces, life in the extreme cold just seemed to make him happy. Might go back to the butcher days, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure Cheezels, Giant Twins and Di's delicious desserts often brought this same smile to his face. Opinion, you always knew what Geoff thought about something. He was not a fence sitter, he never gossiped, but he would tell you what he knew.
Geoff knew that his battle with the cancer took a great toll on Margaret, and in 2019 he gave his friend Karen the most generous gift by giving a blessing for Margaret to accompany to a girls' trip to Europe. Geoff was an ever-ready bunny. He made the most of every minute. He worked and played hard, sailing, car runs, golfing, eating and drinking. He barely slowed down. As his health declined, he just added a sleep or two before bouncing back for the next social occasion. He was a good bloke, good fun, good friend, and we're glad he was part of our lives. Who is going to sharpen the knives? Who's going to carve the meat? Or cook the bread to perfection? Who's going to talk to me about cars? Who's going to cook the barbie? Margaret, Claire and Bodie, Julie and Luke, thank you for including us in this special day and allowing your Ghoul mob to help celebrate the life of their dear friend. Geoff, you no longer need to apologise for talking while we are interrupting. We will miss you greatly.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to see some more photos, and if anybody would like to share a brief word after the next PowerPoint, please raise your hand and come forward. Thank you. Well, thank you for putting it together and for the beautiful insight into his life and all those wonderful memories now that you've got to keep. Well, when we leave this world, there are only three things that we take with us. It's not the cash, and it's not the cars or the house. Three more important things are faith, hope, and love. Geoff had great faith in his family and in his friends, and especially the Goolwa community. Hope, one day, we all hope that we will see Geoff again and spend the next however long with him. And lastly, and most importantly, love. Geoff takes with him all the love that you gave him, all those years that you've been with him. And of course, his gift to you is the love that he gave you, because he gives you that to keep. So we give thanks for Geoff's life, for the love and devotion he gave his family and his friends, for his friendship, his kindness, and his generosity. We admire your courage and bravery when faced with life's challenges. And as you watch over those you have loved, I know that when they listen to the wind, it will be your whispers. When a cool breeze caresses their cheeks, it will be your spirit passing by. You're not gone forever. You're watching over your family alongside your mum, Delma, and all those you have loved who have gone before you. Your spirit is helping to guide your loved ones into the future. There's a lovely poem that I hope Geoff would have approved of, that I hope is fitting. And it's, along the shore I spy a ship, as she sets out to sea. She spreads her sails and sniffs the breeze and slips away from me. I watch her fading image shrink as she moves on and on, until at last she's just a speck. Then someone says, she's gone. Gone where? Gone only from our sight and from our farewell cries. That ship will somewhere reappear to other eager eyes, beyond the dim horizon's rim, to the sound of welcome drums. And while we're crying, there she goes. They're shouting, here she comes. We're built to cruise for but a while upon the trackless sea, until one day we'll all sail away into eternity. Geoff, your life has made its contribution, and we're so glad you are here among us and walked in our company. Your life we honour, and your memory will always be a part of us. Now is the time to say goodbye, a time for us to release, a time to let go. So with reverence and dignity, we tenderly and lovingly commit your body for cremation. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes. Rest in peace, Geoff, and bon voyage. May your spirit fly free, and peace be your gift. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Joe. That concludes our service for Geoffrey. On behalf of the family, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance here today, especially those who have joined us on the live stream service. I'm now going to invite the family to come forward and place a flower on Geoff's coffin, and then we will escort Geoff out to the hearse, where you'll all be invited to place a floral tribute on the coffin at the rear of the hearse. If you could just come forward, please.
Now, you all heard that Geoff loved to sing song, and so I think we better send him out on a high. And one of his favourite songs, of course, was Sailing. So when the pallbearers come up, we're going to listen and sing the very first verse of Sailing. So here we go. You've got to give it your best shot. And then when they're leaving, please stand as the coffin is taken out.
I am sailing home again, across the sea. I am sailing stormy waters to be near you, to be free. I am flying, I am flying like a bird across the sky. I am flying, passing high clouds to be near you, to